Tara is one of the worst characters that The Walking Dead has ever created. And I'll tell you why. I think that at first, I didn't even mind the actress choice, okay? Maybe it was because the writing was a little bit better and the time in which Tara was introduced, at the same time that we are seeing the governor kind of alter his personality and becoming Brian Harriet to all these new people anyway. I mean, the writing was clearly better then. I mean, that's just undeniable. But right off the jump, Tara has one of my least favorite moments in the show, which is when somebody's got the drop on somebody else, like they're waking up and she's got a gun pointed at their head because they just wandered into their house and fell asleep on the couch. She describes the gun that she's holding, which just drives me up the wall. I mean, I can't stand it. It's just like, it's a very dirty, hairy Clint Eastwood kind of thing. Like, this is a 44 Magnum, which would blow your head clean off. It's like, even Rick doesn't do that. Even Rick would not have the luxury of getting to talk about how awesome his gun is and how he's going to use it on your face. Now, they did it the proper way with Rick, where he ends up describing all of his weapons to Gareth in Season 5, and then he just goes, yeah, and a machete with a red handle. That's what I'm going to use to kill you. But they didn't do that with Tara. They didn't build up any goodwill. It's just the very first thing out of her mouth, which makes her seem stupid and immature and trying to act tough when she isn't. She also mentions, this is a big part, and this will come up later. Tara brings up that she was almost about to graduate the police academy. She says this after she does the whole fake intimidation with the gun thing. Now, that could have been really, really cool. That could have been very interesting. Tara could have been an amazing character just by dropping that little nugget that she was in the police academy. She could have become one of the best characters on the show. But they basically forgot that they wrote that into her story. You think I'm crazy? Let's go through it. Does she ever use a pair of handcuffs or suggest that we should just hog tie somebody? Does she ever lay down any laws or anything like that when the governor is trying to exert his power? Does she use any detective work that she learned in said police academy? Because aside from the world ending, if you just got out of the police academy, you were going to be super eager to try to prove yourself, are you not? Do you think Rick would have not been who he is after leaving the police academy? I mean, when we are first introduced to Rick, he's in uniform, loaded gun on his hip, and they commence in a high-speed chase in which he gets shot. Okay? That could have been done with Tara. We could have seen something that reflected the fact that she was trained. Okay, now that we've established that she was a member of the police academy, no pun intended, I mean, it is a bit of a joke at this point. When the gang gets to Alexandria, what do? When the gang gets to Alexandria and they meet Deanna Monroe, who is a congressperson of Ohio, what does she do? She makes Rick, who was a sheriff before the world ended, and Michonne, who, although we don't really know exactly what her backstory is, she's kind of proven herself to be a very pragmatic, strong woman. She makes both of them what? Constables. Security. To lay down the law. She even gives them outfits. Why didn't they make Tara also a constable? Go ahead, think on that. I'll wait. The reason they didn't is because they fucking forgot. And they go, you know what? We haven't brought up the fact that she's a cop. She only went through the academy. You know, we don't really have to focus on this. I mean, she's just kind of a side character at the moment. We're probably thinking of killing her off. We're just not sure how to do it, but she's kind of already completed her arc. Now, what do I mean about her already having completed her arc? Tara, from day one, made terrible decisions. She was not able to sift out that the governor was a bad person, even though he slept with her mother and had all of this drama surrounding him, and could have jumped ship at any time. She randomly just immediately falls head over heels for these side piece lesbian characters that really have no impact on the greater story, all of which end up getting murdered by stupid other side characters. I mean, Tara's just like a bad luck charm. Everybody that she loves just gets shot right in the skull. Her lesbian girlfriend at the prison got shot by some children in the head. They haven't even killed anybody first. They were her first kill as a child was Tara's girlfriend. And that girl was military. You might have also forgotten that. Because who gives a shit, right? Also, her secondary girlfriend, Denise. Talk about one of the most forced fucking relationships I've ever seen in television history, period. There was no reason to write Denise as a lesbian. It would have been one thing if you did it and you did it well. You could have easily done it. Look at what they did with the character Jesus later on. Being gay was part of his character, but it wasn't the only part of his character. He was a diplomat. He helped kind of mediate between communities, kind of like the Aaron of the Hilltop. Because Aaron, as you remember, he worked for an NGO, he found people for Alexandria, he studied the group, he brought them in. And what did Jesus do? He studied the group, he brought them in. He just did it for the Hilltop. That's the only difference. Aaron's also a gay character, but it wasn't shoved down your throat and it wasn't ham-fisted. It was just kind of part of who he was. It was very incidental. You only found out that he was gay when he got to his partner who got injured and he finally kisses Eric. And Eric was a decently well-written side character. For as little as you saw him, I cared way more about Eric than I did about Tara ever. Okay, so we've talked about the fact that she was a cop at the end of her training, and they never bring it up, and they never make her a cop. And we've talked a little bit about how she has horrible taste in women because she only seems to date women that have no impact on the plot whatsoever. Tara's character arc. You'll have to forgive me. I'm going to bounce around. I did not write any notes. I don't need notes. Ask me questions about Tara. I'll give you an answer. I don't need to remember everything off the top of my head. We're just spitballing here. It's just you and I having a conversation. Well, you're listening to me soliloquy right now, but we're talking. Okay? It's just you and me. Tara's character arc. When she sides with the governor, and the governor tries to take the prison, and they have a battle. Herschel is killed. Tara is traumatized by this, and she runs and hides. And even though she was one of the few people kind of in training, she gets completely discombobulated by, I guess, a flashbang or some kind of explosion, and the horrors that are befalling her and her group. She makes no effort to save anyone. She's just kind of a coward, okay? This is the most Eugene-like Tara ever is in the whole show, and it's a terrible moment to be Eugene. Or to be like Eugene. Once the prison has fallen, and Glenn and Tara end up running into each other, and she feels like she owes it to Glenn to help him find Maggie. That part's okay. She feels bad, she chose wrong, she's horribly traumatized, she sees that Glenn is a good-hearted person and wants to help him, okay. And then guess what? When they go into that tunnel, and they try to squeeze through those walkers that are kind of embedded in the fallen debris from within that tunnel, Tara should have sacrificed herself to ensure that Glenn got to Maggie safely. And then that is the end of Tara. That is the end of her story, okay? Because that's all she needed to do. She finally lives up to what she was training for in the real world the whole time, which was to defend the innocent. And at this point in the story, Glenn isn't innocent. He's a civilian. And your goal as Tara, as a cop who is in training, who chose the wrong side and you are aware of it, you should be trying to right the wrongs. You should be trying to give Glenn justice. I'm not saying you have to kill yourself, but I'm saying you should definitely be willing to die for this thing that you believe in. That is good storytelling. It doesn't matter if you wouldn't do it in person, like in the real world. In terms of storytelling, character arcs are important. A character starts off in one spot, and mentally and emotionally, they go through something, either a trauma, a difficulty, a conflict, a challenge of some kind, and they learn from it, they change from it, and that completes their arc. She didn't have that. But in my book, when she didn't die, even though she got her ankle stuck, it's like they wanted her to die, but they just chickened out. When they didn't kill her, I was very disappointed, because I thought that would have been a good end to her story. If that's where her story ended, I guess it was fine. But no, they continued on. And she barely had any effect on any of the story. She really, really didn't. I mean, anything that involved her was so forced. It just didn't matter because there was no story to continue with her. They ham-fisted the whole Denise plot to try to artificially make you feel something for two characters that ultimately didn't matter in the story. Now, I know that you're going to say, well, Denise clearly matters because she saved Carl's life. Okay. But Carl died eventually. And she didn't do anything else. She was a coward for the majority of the time. Her story was just atrociously written. And they didn't know whether to make her a coward or confident. She would fluctuate within an episode like 15 times, either from extreme cowardice or extreme confidence. But when she kissed Tara, and she goes, "It sucks being afraid," I just cringed because I go, God, you didn't even build up that she liked her. Tara's been yelling at her this whole episode when she said that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Tara was calling her a coward. But it is not a resolution to have them start a relationship. And then we don't see any of their relationship at all. Zero, none, zilch, nada. Later on, when Denise dies, because somebody had some common sense somewhere and said, you know what, we need something to spark the group getting mad, okay? Getting mad at the saviors again. Let's have them go out on a run. Denise, even though she would be nothing but dead weight, demands that she wants to go because she's tired of being a pussy this whole time. And so Daryl's like, ah. And then Rosita's like, okay. And then she comes along. And then she dies because what else was going to happen to her? She was literally useless the entire episode. She almost dies trying to get a cooler out of a car. Go back and rewatch it if you don't believe me. Then she almost dies in the apothecary place. And she basically has no good effect on any of it. She just takes an arrow through the head, wraps up whatever she was mumbling right as it shot her in the face. And that was a good shocking moment. It definitely shocked me that they did it. But did I feel sad because Denise died? Oh, God, no. I didn't feel bad because Denise died, because who gives a shit? Denise was not a character that we cared about. I'm sorry, she just wasn't. It's not like I'm trying to hurt that actress's feelings. I'm not trying to hurt the actress's feelings who plays Tara either. But I'm sorry, just because my name is The Walking David and I really, really was a huge fan of the show does not mean that it is beyond reproach and free from scrutiny. I think if you are a true fan of a show and it starts to let you down or disappoint you, you can still like it or have love and affection for it, but you can be very, very angry and disappointed in it. Just like a child, okay? They might make decisions that you don't like. They might do things that you don't like. You may not like who they date or what job they have or how they carry themselves, but you know what? They're your kid and you love them. It's that motherly kind of love. But does your mom yell at you when you make a stupid decision? You're damn right she does. Of course she does. Sure. So, not really a lot happens. She's just kind of there. I don't really know exactly what her purpose is. She just is kind of filler. There's a lot of characters like this. I'm not saying that Tara's the only one, but given the fact that she makes it until season 9 is ridiculous. It serves zero to no point. The episode in which Tara finds Oceanside is one of the worst rated episodes in The Walking Dead's history. Now, is it because this episode is heavy on the women element? No. I was actually really interested at first. I was actually really interested when I found out that their whole community had all of the men wiped out, and they kept only the women. I was really curious as to how this was going to play out in the story. I didn't know if they were going to become integrated into Alexandria or the Hilltop or whatever, or if they were going to have some cool, interesting stuff that happened by the ocean. But no, nothing. It was such a waste. And you know who they wasted that storyline on? Like the worst character. They didn't even send anybody interesting. I'm sure. This is how television works, you guys. You make relationships, right? You network. And while you're on that set, if you become chummy with some of the writers, over time, maybe if you bide your time, or if you're just really amiable and amicable, and you're just really a team player, eventually you might get rewarded with your very own thing. This is how spin-offs are born. Like Better Call Saul. You start off, you do your little side character thing, and if you do it well, the fans will clamor for more. And so will the writers and stuff of the original show, and they'll give you a little bit of a spin-off. This was kind of Tara's moment to do that. This was a Tara-centric episode, and she fell flat on her dumb face. Not calling the actress dumb, calling Tara dumb, okay? I can separate the two. I'm sure the actress is a lovely lady. I saw her at Fandemic, but listen, I've made no apologies for the fact that I dislike Tara. To say that I should like her because she is strong woman means nothing to me. There are way better written characters than Tara on this show. A lot better written women characters than Tara on this show. So, she proved that she could really not carry an episode by herself. There's a whole lot of aspects in it. Any time there's like a Tara-heavy episode, it really doesn't deliver. Look at her episode with Heath, where she finds that little PPP thing written on a card. Heath had that episode just to get the fuck out of the Walking Dead universe, to go have an actual career. Good for him. He took the appropriate move. The show was still liked then. He left on a high note. And because he left on a high note, and on a mysterious note, the fans still bring that fucker up. Even though he also wasn't a special character. He just looked cool with better dialogue and better scenes, with bigger characters. He had scenes with King Ezekiel and Michonne and Rick. He was more interesting. Okay, because you didn't know as much about him and you wanted to learn more about him. There was, like I said, there was a mystery about him. He seemed educated. He seemed tough but not experienced. Kind of, untested. And that was the whole point of that episode with him and Michonne and Glenn and everybody, is that he was finally seeing the harsh reality of the world that they were living in affect him directly. Sorry to go off on that weird Heath tangent. Back to the Tara crap. She doesn't do a great job of trying to convince these people to join Alexandria. She doesn't come up with good negotiations. She doesn't show off an excessive amount of intelligence or persuasiveness. It's just kind of, we sent a female character who's a lesbian to go to the female-centric community. And I'm just like, okay. It was a very bad episode. And I'm not even putting it all on her. They didn't do a lot with Oceanside, period, through the entire show. The whole Oceanside saga, or whatever you want to call that, was nothing but just a vestigial storyline that could have been cut from the entire show, and it never would have affected anything. You know, even the garbage people who talked funny and looked weird had more of an impact on the actual structure of the show, and went on to have bigger, overlooming effects. Oceanside did not. Can't blame Tara for that, but she was the one who found them. So, let's see. Most of what Tara does in season 7 and 8, in season 6, 7, and 8, is just to try to hide the fact that she was pregnant at some point. It's really underwhelming. She really doesn't do a whole lot. Like she just wears goofy glasses and eats Twizzlers, and I was just very underwhelmed by her. I have a hard time thinking of something that she did that greatly affected the story. Somebody that she saved, some sacrificial move that she did, something that she learned. Nothing, really. And keep in mind, Denise is dead. She's long dead. So it's just, she didn't fall in love. She didn't do anything. She was just kind of there. She was just there in the background, collecting a paycheck. Get that money, girl. But didn't really bring anything. We finally get a little bit of a resurgence in season 9 with Tara. What is different about Tara here? She has extensions. I mean, I'll give her this. Not every girl can pull those off. And she is one of them. But, so we get a little bit of a resurgence of Tara. She pops up in a few scenes. It looks like she's become maybe like a council member of the Alexandria Small Council. Possibly. But then again, so is Gabriel, so that's not really saying a whole lot. But I will say this. Tara is responsible for one of the happiest moments I've ever experienced in The Walking Dead. You have to give credit where it's due. When the pike scene happened, and we panned over, and I saw Tara's head was on a pike, I stood up, and I cheered, and I clapped, and I screamed, "Yeah!" I mean, I was whistling Dixie. I could not get past how happy I was. I talked about it on several podcasts. I mean, I was just vibing. I loved me some Tara on a pike. Holding for the dog. Love you, buddy. That's a good boy. That's a sweetheart. So, let's just think about some things that they could have done with Tara. That's what people, I think, really need to hear me say. Just so it doesn't seem like it's just, David, you just hate this broad, okay, for no reason, except you just hate her to hate her. And I go, that's not the truth at all. It couldn't be further from the truth. What I would have done, like I said before, I either would have sacrificed her when she helps Glenn find Maggie, and she dies sacrificing herself, making up for the fact that she chose to support The Walking Dead's version of Hitler. Okay? She committed seppuku and stabbed herself and fell on her own sword. The honorable thing. The honorable death. But if she's not going to get an honorable death, at least not for a while, what I would have done is I would have tried to build up her relationship more with Maggie, which they tried to ham-fist and do, I believe, in like the late 7th, early part of the 8th season. This is like when Maggie's sort of taking over the hilltop, so I think it's like season 8, okay? And she just goes, like, now you're one of the most important people in the world to me. I would have built that up. I would have built up a relationship with one of the main characters. She has to be involved with one of the main characters, more than the others, okay? And she also needs to be brought up more in conversation. Because if you are going to keep a person around, even when they're not on screen, you need to feel their presence. There's a lot of moments in season 7 and 8 where we feel Aaron's presence, or Eugene's presence, or Carol's presence, or Michonne, and they're not in the scenes, but you can tell that they're there. Same goes with Maggie. They do it all the time. With good writing, you can be a little bit self-referential so that people are always keeping in mind that these characters do have a part to play. But to me, it just felt like the writers didn't really know what to do with her, and so they only used her when they couldn't think of who should be doing this thing. Who should be helping King Ezekiel with this festival? Tara kind of looks like Mother Goose now with her extensions. Let's, let her help. And then later when she ends up on a pike, we can have Eugene just going like, have any of you seen Tara? Because I was looking to talk to her, but I couldn't find her. Okay? You didn't even build up the relationship with Eugene. Because that also could have been an additional part where you build up the relationship with Abraham, or you build up the relationship with Rosita, or Eugene, that group that she was walking with Glenn and found. You should have built that shit up. It would have made a lot of sense to do that. But you really didn't. The moment they got to Alexandria, they pretty much forgot that Tara had anything to do with the show, aside from just be a heavily featured extra in the background of things. And when they needed somebody to speak up and they didn't want to give an extra their SAG card, they had Tara say it because she's already part of the bill, Put it on her tab. But there's really just not a lot that they did with her. So when they got to Alexandria, I would have also had Tara be part of the constable ship. Make her a constable, and make Michonne maybe a consultant, kind of like what Deanna did with Maggie. I think Deanna should have done that with Michonne and Maggie, and have Tara be a constable. And if she's the constable, she could be tough. She could be surveying all of Alexandria, going door to door, and kind of doing police work, the police work that she never got to do. So she's already starting to fulfill the thing that she was doing in the real world. And since Alexandria was supposed to give them a taste of the world before the fall, this would give Tara a chance to actually do some good. She could have intervened with Rick and Pete. Not Michonne. Tara. Michonne could have been there to consult Deanna to not kick Rick out. But Tara could have been there to literally manhandle Pete. Slap some cuffs on him. Go check on the abused housewife. And then report back to Rick, her boss. Because even in the real world, Rick would have superiority. He's older, he's been doing it longer, and he was already an accomplished police officer. So, tell me that's not a little bit better. Tell me that doesn't give her a little bit something more to do. I think it does. In terms of making Tara more useful, I feel that you could have also done something where, maybe if it wasn't super forced, but kind of like what you did with Aaron and his adoptive daughter, Gracie, Tara could have helped raise maybe some children, or kind of acted like a big sister to several of the women at Oceanside. She could have taught the women of Oceanside how to fire weapons. She could have taught them self-defense because she was already trained to do those things, but that was never really explored. You could even have it brought up that she's very lonely because there's not a lot of people to choose from in this new world. But, she still wants companionship. She still wants to share her life with somebody, and every time that she seems to love anybody, they seem to meet their demise. Is it something with her? Is it just this world that we live in? Is she ever going to find love? And that could be an interesting thing for us to explore. And if we build that part up like we know that that is what she is thinking, then we can start having little hints that maybe something might go her way. And then guess what? If she had actually had a long-standing relationship that was established, when her head ended up on the pike, we would have been devastated for Tara's significant other. And it also would have sparked a reason for that significant other to want to rise up and kill the Whisperers. But do you see what I mean? You gotta do better. You have to do better. So when people say that Tara is their favorite character, I'm led to believe that either you like her because she's gay, you like her because you have a crush on her, you like her because you think that she's cool and she kind of represents you, she's kind of forgotten in the background, and because you're kind of overlooked in your life, you feel you kind of relate to the fact that she's not really accepted in the wider group, or you like that she's kind of like a Rosita, like women get it done, or whatever, But from a story perspective, from a character development perspective, from the writing perspective of the show, just on the face of it, she is a poorly written character. She doesn't have completed arcs. She doesn't know what to do with herself. They don't know what to do with her. They can't seem to come up with any better dialogue or anything with her. Everything just seems really corny and cheesy that they give her to do. They're trying to shoot around the fact that she's pregnant in a couple of the seasons. I think it's season 6 to 7 she's pregnant or something like that. That's not a big deal. I don't care about that. Hell, people left the show and came back because they thought they were going to go on to a different show. So they can shoot around things all day and night. I don't care. But to say that you like Tara, I think, means that you are just picking a random person that not a lot of people like, and you're attaching to their bandwagon because you want to feel special. You want to feel like you are part of the group that quote-unquote gets it. But you don't. I'm afraid that you don't. If you like Tara significantly and you love her storyline, then I think you're speaking from lack of experience in terms of storytelling and story writing. And you could just have a crush on her, man. You could just think she's beautiful. Okay? But to me, she's written as poorly as the sand snakes in Game of Thrones. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you know what I'm talking about. How pointless those female characters ended up being, even though their mother in that show is a major character and actually affects the story. So this is not woman hating. This is story and character hating. This is a strong dislike of what they did with the story that they were told. Now, I have a big problem with The Walking Dead storytelling from seasons 6 onward, okay? 6 through present day. It's just kind of gone sour grapes on me, okay? It's, it really has aged overnight like a pear. Knowing where the show ended up, based on where it started, I am very disappointed with where it ended up. It has nothing to do with the female characters or the male characters, just the story in general, on paper, transcribed in script format, is worse. Okay? It is worse. So understand that when I'm saying this stuff, I'm saying it from an actor, filmmaker, writer, director, editor perspective. I'm saying it as someone who has been in the industry and who has seen better. I have a different opinion than someone who just casually watches the show and just doesn't really care if the story goes anywhere. They're just watching for the zombie kills, which a lot of people do. There's a lot of shows that do that, where it's just, the story is irrelevant. The story is, it's just incidental, the story. It has nothing to do with what you're here for. But this isn't the show The 100. This isn't Z Nation. And it isn't Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. This is a show that in its first I would say 5 seasons was about the character dynamic and interplay between these characters. And the characters were so much more relatable. You know, you had doctors that you could relate to the scientific part. You had religious people that you could relate to their part. You hated certain characters at this point because they were well written, but they were well written for you to dislike them. There was intrigue, there was mystery, there was danger. And the later parts of the show just seemed to forget about all that. So, Tara is terrible. Pun very much intended. And that is the title of this video. Tara is terrible. I hope you all can relate. I hope you all get something out of this. If Tara is your favorite character, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry that I said what I said. I'm sorry that she's your favorite character. Because I would challenge you to rewatch it and think about the overall impact that she has on the story after she gets Glenn back to Maggie. So from season 4 to season 9, what she really does. I would love to know. And if you agree, tell me. Please, for the love of God, make me feel like I'm not alone in this world. Anyways, off my soapbox. I'm David Grayson. This has been The Walking David, and Tara is terrible.